Hey Christine, I hope you're doing well. As always, thank you for this assignment. This week I decided to do a verbal kind of discussion as opposed to writing it down. It's just been that kind of a week. But at least to my knowledge, what I'm gathering is kind of the distinctions between CBT and the psychodynamic or psychoanalytic kind of perspective. CBT seems very focus-based, very symptom-based, that it looks exactly at the present rather than the past, that the treatment for looking at such like a specific thing, you have a symptom and then you're looking to treat it. So it seems that the symptom or the situation could be resolved in a shorter period of time, which would be beneficial for, especially in like community health. I think that this is a really heavily utilized model to have an issue and then have those results in a measurable and kind of, measurable way. And that because that measurement can be drawn from the homework or the self-analysis of really asking that person, the client, to like take initiative and to put in the work, kind of this idea of therapy of like, I'm here to help you and to coach you through this, but I'm not here to solve your answers or solve your problems. And that kind of in comparison to the psychodynamic, it seemed that with CBT, the therapist is seen almost more as a coach, whereas in the psychodynamic, it's more of an analyst and a therapist, someone who's going to like see the inside of your brain and be like, oh, well, this is this and this and this. And that because it's more of analysis as opposed to a resolution, that it could take longer and that it would be more expensive, right? And so then if something takes longer, you are eliminating a handful of your clients because it takes time and it takes money, which is a privilege that most people, I would say, do not have. It also seems, because it's not looking at a symptom, it may be looking at symptoms, but it's looking at the compilation of all of those symptoms. It's looking more at the whole picture. So I think that because of that, the client has a little more ability to lead the session as opposed to like following a system that has been collaborated with via the therapist and CBT. Also, looking at in the psychodynamic, you're looking more at your history, at your story, at your context. And that as you kind of open it up, it's not just treating a symptom, it's treating your narrative and your history and looking at all of that. So it's definitely more relationship based, whereas CBT did not seem like it was particularly relational based. Then taking that, looking at some of the pros and the cons of how these two work out, for me was really helpful to kind of flesh out this idea of like, because you have with CBT, it's short term and it's a system. You are showing your client every step they take, there's progress. They have this brilliant application of theory to practice, of discussion, and you're applying your knowledge, you're applying your tools. And I think for clients that have certain diagnoses, this would be incredibly powerful to see that they can change, that they can be self-affirming, that they can be self-healing, that they can re-empower or re-embody themselves. They don't have to just have this overarching sense of helplessness. I think similarly with the psychodynamic perspective, gaining that understanding of like digging into your soil that you have cultivated your lifestyle and your personality from can also be very enriching. I think with that, it can be really overwhelming looking at the whole thing, but I see what one lacks, the other one kind of makes up for. I also think that CBT is kind of culturally specific and culturally bound. It feels very individualistic, and not only individualistic, but the individual outside of the context of their life. So, it's finding that autonomy of fixing the self while the system is still broken, or the lifestyle is still broken, or something that I'm not too sure. It just seems like a lot of work. So I don't know about somebody who would be from a different culture, a more communal culture, how well CBT would work, which is kind of what I'm thinking about. And because it is so short term, and because there is an agenda, it's like for every success there could be a failure. And I think the burnout rate of like you're seeing yourself not reaching these goals every week could be really hard and discrediting and discouraging for clients. Whereas with the psychodynamic, you're just kind of like all over the place, and as long as you keep pulling up this soil, then you're succeeding. And then what aspects of CBT stand out to you as particularly relevant or potentially useful in practice? I took the Theories in Addiction class earlier this semester, and through all of like the clinical cases that we discussed, so much of it was looking at CBT and how effective it is. And so kind of playing with that idea, I think it's great for addiction and recovery. I think it'd be incredible for clients working or struggling with trauma or PTSD, maybe like new fears or phobias where you're seeing a specific thing that the client wants to resolve in some way, and they have to change. As an individual, they have to change, or they really want to change, as opposed to like having a better understanding of yourself. With that, I think kind of the critiques I wrote down, a lot of CBT seems, it's kind of pathologizing, like in the way that you have a symptom and you have a diagnosis that you're trying to eradicate or resolve. And a lot of these, as I did look through kind of the homework and the exercises that can be done for CBT, I was open to them, and I thought a lot of them were pretty cool. But with the videos specifically, like the guy, Dr. Thomas Cordier, who was really, I feel like somebody who would sabotage your brain, by saying things like changing their rational thought. It just felt like a weird self-help in a kind of weird way of like, this is my way that I've proven time and time again that if your client follows this regimen, it will, begin to feel better, do better, and get better. And that feels very much like the clinical model in which you treat the symptom, you don't treat the person. Even though I'm not saying that all CBT is, I just feel like Dr. Thomas Cordier was really advocating on the applicability of, because you can do research, it can be funded, and there can be results that then can further your research. So trying to systematize the way that we deal with this, it just felt kind of weird. So yeah, I guess. But I was really moved by the other video. I forget his name, the guy from the 80s. And the woman he got to play the role of his client I thought that was really well portrayed and conveyed. And I do see how your thoughts can be rearranged. You can reconfigure the puzzle. and problem solving process and catch yourself. And I do think there are a lot of very powerful things in CBT, but I do feel that the underlying current, the structure of your treatment and what you focus on, what symptoms you want to focus on, how you deal with them, as opposed to the client leading that, is very much dependent on the therapist, how they coach you, where they cue you, what they're leading you through. And that was really apparent, especially in that like played out video. You saw in the first instances that he could have been like, oh, well, your husband's very much like your partner, your dad. But I see the process it took in him pulling it out for X amount of weeks. But at the end of the day, it felt very led. It felt very empowering, witnessing this person become very empowered. But still that reliance, that heavy reliance on the therapist to fix something and to heal something, felt kind of like a puppet master that I'm not too sure about. But I guess I'm realizing now it's more very much dependent on the symptom or the diagnosis or the condition, not necessarily so much the person that chooses the therapist. All right, sorry this went over. Thank you.